The Garden of Live Flowers. Although the flowers were interesting enough, she felt that it would be far grander to have a talk with a real queen.
"You can't possibly do that,"
said the rose.
"I should advise you to walk the other way."
This sounded nonsense to Alice, so she said nothing, but set off at once towards the Red Queen. To her surprise, she lost sight of her in a moment, and found herself walking in at the front door again. A little provoked, she drew back, and after looking everywhere for the Queen, whom she spied out at last a long way off, she thought she would try the plan this time of walking in the opposite direction. It succeeded beautifully. She had not been walking a minute before she found herself face to face with the Red Queen, and full in sight of the hill she had been so long aiming at.
"Where do you come from?"
said the Red Queen.
"And where are you going? Look up, speak nicely, and don't twiddle your fingers all the time."
Alice attended to all these directions, and explained as well as she could that she had lost her way.
"I don't know what you mean by your way," said the Queen. "All the ways about here belong to me. But why did you come out here at all?"
she added in a kinder tone.
"Curtsy while you're thinking what to say. It saves time."
Alice wondered a little at this, but she was too much in awe of the Queen to disbelieve it.
"I'll try it when I get home,"
she thought to herself.
"The next time I'm a little late for dinner." "It's time for you to answer now," the Queen said, looking at her watch. "Open your mouth a little wider when you speak, and always say, 'Your Majesty.'" "I only wanted to see what the garden was like, Your Majesty." "That's right," said the Queen, patting her on the head,
which Alice didn't like at all.
"Though when you say garden, I've seen gardens compared with which this would be a wilderness."
Alice didn't dare to argue the point, but went on,
"And I thought I'd try and find my way to the top of that hill." "When you say hill,"
the Queen interrupted,
"I could show you hills in comparison with which you'd call that a valley." "No, I shouldn't,"
said Alice, surprised into contradicting her at last.
"A hill can't be a valley, you know. That would be nonsense."
The Red Queen shook her head.
"You may call it nonsense if you like," she said, "but I've heard nonsense, compared with which that would be as sensible as a dictionary."
Alice curtsied again, as she was afraid from the Queen's tone that she was a little offended, and they walked on in silence till they got to the top of the little hill. For some minutes Alice stood without speaking, looking out in all directions over the country, and a most curious country it was. There were a number of tiny little brooks running straight across it from side to side, and the ground between was divided up into squares by a number of little green hedges that reached from brook to brook.
"I declare it's marked out just like a large chessboard,"
Alice said at last.
"There ought to be some men moving about somewhere. And so there are,"
she added in a tone of delight, and her heart began to beat quick with excitement as she went on.
"It's a great huge game of chess that's being played all over the world. If this is the world at all, you know. Oh, what fun it is! Oh, how I wish I was one of them. I wouldn't mind being a pawn, if only I might join. Though, of course, I should like to be a queen best."
She glanced rather shyly at the real Queen as she said this, but her companion only smiled pleasantly and said,
"That's easily managed. You can be the White Queen's pawn if you like, as Lily's too young to play, and you're in the second square to begin with. When you get to the 8th square, you'll be a queen."
Just at this moment, somehow or other, they began to run. Alice never could quite make out, in thinking it over afterwards, how it was that they began. All she remembers is that they were running hand in hand, and the Queen went so fast that it was all she could do to keep up with her. And still the Queen kept crying, "Faster, faster!" But Alice felt she could not go faster, though she had not breath left to say so. The most curious part of the thing was that the trees and the other things round them never changed their place at all, however fast they went. They never seemed to pass anything.
"I wonder if all the things move along with us,"
thought poor puzzled Alice. And the Queen seemed to guess her thoughts, for she cried, "Faster! Don't try to talk!" Not that Alice had any idea of doing that. She felt as if she would never be able to talk again. She was getting so much out of breath, and still the Queen cried, "Faster, faster!" and dragged her along.
"Are we nearly there?"
Alice managed to pant out at last.
"Nearly there,"
the Queen repeated.
"Why, we passed it 10 minutes ago. Faster!"
And they ran on for a time in silence, with the wind whistling in Alice's ears and almost blowing her hair off her head, she fancied.
"Now, now!"
cried the Queen.
"Faster, faster!"
And they went so fast that at last they seemed to skim through the air, hardly touching the ground with their feet, till suddenly, just as Alice was getting quite exhausted, they stopped, and she found herself sitting on the ground, breathless and giddy. The Queen popped her up against a tree and said kindly, "You may rest a little now." Alice looked round her in great surprise.
"Why, I do believe we've been under this tree the whole time. Everything's just as it was."
"Of course it is," said the Queen. "What would you have it?"
"Well, in our country,"
said Alice, still panting a little,
"you generally get to somewhere else if you ran very fast for a long time, as we've been doing."
"A slow sort of country," said the Queen. "Now here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that."